Hello and welcome to the Swan Song Podcast. My name is Ben Buddy Slack. I'm the founder of the Swan Song Project and the host of this podcast. The Swan Song Project is a charity. We're based here in Leeds, England, and we help people who are facing the end of their lives or dealing with a bereavement to write and record an original song. We believe in celebrating lives, making memories, and leaving legacies. If you'd like to find out more about the charity, you can visit our website, which is swansongproject.co.uk. The podcast features songwriters. Every episode I have a different songwriter on. I ask them to share one of their songs. We have a chat about how they wrote it. I ask them to share a songwriting tip, and I also ask them for a song that's meaningful to them in some way related to bereavement. This episode features Hannah White, and it's a brilliant chat. I really enjoyed this chat. Hannah's got some amazing songs. It's very powerful songs, and we talk in quite a lot of depth about the creative process, and her approaches to songwriting. And it was really fascinating, interesting conversation. Hannah won the Americana Music Awards Song of the Year last year for her song Car Crash, which we talked briefly about in this episode, and she's also currently nominated for 2 Americana Music Awards. Americana Music Awards, which were in January of 2025. She's nominated for Album of the Year for her album Sweet Revolution, and she's nominated for Artist of the Year. It was a great chat. We enjoyed having her. I'm sure you're really going to enjoy it too. This is our final podcast of the year. It's been a good year with lots of great episodes, and the Swan Song Project's had lots of good work, great songs, with terminally ill and bereaved people. We do have a Christmas fundraising appeal at the moment, because it's been a great year impact-wise for Swan Song, but it's also been quite a challenging year fundraising-wise, as it is for many charities at the moment. So we do have a Christmas fundraising appeal, which I will put the link to in the description. If anybody listening to this would like to contribute towards our work, all donations are really, really appreciated. So I'll put that below. Without further ado, here's Hannah White on the Swan Song Podcast. Enjoy. Okay, today I'm here with Hannah White. Thanks for joining me, Hannah. Hi,
how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking some songwriting with you. So for anybody who's new to the show, this is the Swan Song Podcast. We do it in 3 sections. So first we're going to have one of Hannah's songs, and then we'll talk about how she wrote it. Then in section 2, I'm going to ask Hannah for a songwriting tip. And then section 3, we're going to talk about a song that's meaningful to Hannah in some way relating to bereavement. So over to you now, Hannah. Which of your songs have you chosen to talk to us about writing today?
So this song is called Working Shoes. I kind of chose this song because it's quite a new song. It's kind of a new song that I wrote, and it was spurred on by an emotional experience. So it's kind of fresh in my mind, and clear. So I thought I'd bring that to the table, and also because it was kind of inspired by the American election and a lot of just very sort of powerful, frightening feelings that are coming up for me, but for everyone around me. So I feel like, it's something that's a bit universal that people will hopefully be able to relate to.
Yeah, definitely. So that's very recent then, if you've written it in response to the election. Is this so when the podcast goes out, the song's not actually released. The song comes out in January, isn't it?
Yeah.
So is this an exclusive?
This is an exclusive, yeah.
Wow. I love when we get an exclusive on the show. Good stuff. So if people listening at home will have a listen to it now. This is Working Shoes, the new single from Hannah White.
There's a town on fire, Lord, what a fire. Oh, baby's got the blues. You can fall apart, or you can put on your working shoes. You can hear people crying, hungry and afraid, for all they got to lose. Get it together and put on your working shoes. 'Cause baby,
Okay, brilliant. So yeah, that was Working Shoes. Yeah, it's a great song, Hannah. One of the things that I love about it is that it's inspiring, but in a non-cheesy way. Sometimes songs
Yeah,
that are like, it's kind of like, it's recognizing that there's work to do, that things can be better, but it's not just like,
yeah.
oh, let's just hope things are better. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm
honest.
kind of all over that really, because yeah, there's that I don't know, that like culture of, oh, let's hope, or let's just be positive and focus on the good stuff, which is sort of I suppose it's valid, it's got a place, but yeah, I think the wonderful thing about songs is that you can I don't know, you can articulate something that maybe you're finding hard in words, and actually I suppose that the theme of that song is about like finding some kind of, I don't know, role or something positive, but actually it's an expression of a very hopeless and sad feeling that I was having, and I kind of wrote it in tears. But I feel like I mean, it's kind of what songwriting allows me to do. It's just that thing that you go really, really inwards. And when I'm struggling with something, I do go very quiet. I find, speaking or just connecting to anyone around me like really difficult. There's just something that's maybe a bit too big for just plain words or conversation. And I suppose that's where a song really helps me. Yeah, so that was very much that. It's just like, oh God, this overwhelming sense of where do we go now? What do we do? Like the world is so sad. This feels so much bigger than me. So it's just kind of in a really emotional place, and just like, no, come on. That, I mean, a part of it just comes out as well. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's such an interesting thing, isn't it? How a song seems to have to do it. So when you was talking, then it just really resonated with me with the experiences that we have with people. It's one song where you have people who are facing the end of their lives, and again, it can feel like such a like an overwhelming kind of thing for them to try and process, and the struggle to do it in words. But somehow there's something about a song that makes it easier to do in some kind of way. What do you think it is about songs that make them able to help you deal with such big things?
I mean, there's something a bit mystical about it, to be
Yeah.
honest, and we know that is fact, because that, like, you hear about like one of the guys in my band. He lives in Norway, but he's plays piano and Hammond organ, but he regularly does a dementia gig, but goes into dementia homes. And plays for people, and people who are just he's the most uplifting work he does, he says to me, and he's playing for people who are some of them quite severely ill and extremely withdrawn, but through music he sees them in front of his eyes coming out of themselves, singing words, dancing, joyful, expressing facial expressions and words that just aren't there when the music goes. So there is something really mystical about it, and I can't explain it. It's kind of always been with me, thank goodness, because I've, like everyone, we've all had our share of trauma and bereavement and tragedy. That's just human. But I honestly don't know where I'd be without it. But I don't know. But I do. I don't know the answer, but I do accept that it's a place I can go when everything feels too big for me, or too hard, and somehow words come out and sounds come out and music emerges, and sometimes it even makes the whole experience less painful. I don't know, sometimes it's its own therapy, or it helps processing. I suppose it just gives expression to something that otherwise would sit in you and maybe just cause pain.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder if there's something about like I was just wondering if like when you have a good conversation about something difficult, like that feels helpful, but it never feels the same as whether it's because a song's got life and it's got longevity, whereas like a conversation feels like it's kind of you've kind of expressed something, but it's like it doesn't stay with you as often as a
Yeah,
song would, whereas like yeah,
that's
I don't know.
really true. And I like, even when it's not your own, like, what I don't know, I've got a special relationship with my own songs. You're a songwriter that yeah, it's a special thing. But even with someone else's song, if it really connects with you, you can kind of ride on that for a couple of days. It does. I think it goes somewhere that words alone don't go. I really do.
Yeah. It's definitely a form of magic, isn't it?
Yeah.
So going back to Working Shoes, so what was the writing process like of that? You were saying you were like,
Yeah, I was in a really, really difficult place, and it's the same as kind of what it always is I just kind of pick up a guitar, like just you know, I can't really speak to anyone around me, but I just pick up a guitar, and I'm sitting with feelings. It's not really, there's no idea, there's no agenda. I don't think, oh, I need to write a song, but I do get this sense of like an itch that I need to scratch. So there is an urge, but I don't have an agenda. I don't think I must write a song or I want to create something out of this. It's just a bit of self-soothing, I think. So I just reach for a guitar and then and I'll start playing. I mean, even if I reach for a guitar or sit at a piano and I start playing with an intention to play someone else's song in a way to kind of help me or whatever, I rarely complete the song. I'll always kind of move into my own space for some reason. I don't know. There's maybe I don't know. That's that magic thing. But yeah, I sat down with the guitar just in this horrible place and just started strumming, and the words and the music just come together. They land. I think not. Well, I suppose we're going to talk later about like tips and stuff, so maybe I won't go there. But it's just something that lands. Yeah.
and so the words and the music come together for you, is that?
Yeah, they do. I know everyone's different with that. I mean, sometimes I'll read a phrase or a word or I'll get a picture of something, and that can be totally separate to this process of sitting down with the instrument. But that there might be something in my head or in my phone that I've noted down that's like magical, that I know something can happen with it. So, I mean, that didn't happen for this particular song, but it does often happen. I'll often use some little phrase or a word or something that I've heard that I think that's I don't know, resonated with me. But I don't force it either. It kind of let it sit there, and it's there and it's stored, and it will come when it's right and the marriage is right or whatever. And the words and music somehow just come together, and I feel like it's funny because my daughter does art, and she was like talking to me about like her projects they were asking her to kind of come up with a concept, and she was just saying that she starts, she's struggling to come up with a concept first, and she's feeling like that there's something a bit inadequate about her. But I definitely said, I was like, no, my experience is the creative process is a marriage between what you're thinking and actually doing it. So the act of sitting down, like even when you want to write an essay or a story or something, you just sit there totally frozen. But when you start writing, the actual act of moving your hand, putting pen to paper, allows something to flow. And that's what I think is part of the magic is just the act of doing it. So I'll start strumming and sort of singing something, and before too long something just happens, and it's just this marriage of what's in your head and what's in your hands, and it all kind of comes out together.
And it's kind of like trusting that process, I guess, isn't it, of like going into it with like, I don't know what I'm going to do here but
trusting is massive, because sometimes if you've got, oh God, I want to write something good, or I want to write something that's got a hook or that people will like or that's catchy or whatever, and you kind of, when you've got too much kind of agenda, it can interfere with it. So trusting is really important, I think.
And so is that how you do like, is this song you can say it's going to be released in January? But is that just as a standalone single, or is there plans for the next album that this is going to be a part of at the minute, or is it?
Yeah, well, I've been doing this, writing a single a month and releasing it for a year. So this is my second to last single. I've got another one in February, and I'm also working on an album. I mean, I am a prolific songwriter. I'm writing all the time, and it is definitely a way for me to process basic functioning. I couldn't do life without it. So I've always got a lot of material. But I released an album last year, and then my label were just like, yeah, you can't release another album immediately. You've got to give it some time. So this was kind of a way to there's some songs knocking around, and I just kind of get them out there and be productive. But I'm working on another album, so that's coming out the end of next year. So I'm excited about that.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, that's a good way of doing it. Just having that. I really love when people have something like that where it's like, yeah, a song a month or like some kind of challenge. I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard a thing that Prince used to write a song a day, and that was
Did
his thing.
you?
Like he just, I don't know if that's true or not. It's one of these rumors that I heard that he'd write and record a song every day. And there's this
Oh,
massive vault somewhere of unreleased Prince songs. That what, yeah, I remember there was a thing when he died about his family obviously getting then the rights to that and whether they would just release it because apparently there's like thousands of songs that he's never released. Again, it might not be true. Don't hold me to that, but that's what I've heard.
well,
But
it wouldn't surprise me because he was so disciplined about everything,
yeah,
and he's just so masterful, isn't he? Like that,
yeah,
masterful songwriter. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been good fun. It's been a bit stressful because I set myself this deadline and I'm busy with everything. But it's there's been like a bit of a free, with an album, you want to kind of
Mm,
pull together a sound, give people an experience, it has to make sense, and as this just entire experience. But with, you know, I've been able to do this, that, and none of it's really sat together, none of it makes sense, but it's been a bit of playtime. So,
mm,
and I've learned a lot from it, like just with recording, me and my husband Kieran, we produce it together, record it together, and I feel like we've developed through it, and it's been really fun.
yeah. It sounds really good. Yeah, I imagine, and that's the kind of one of the questions I was going to ask you was so talking about that process where like just letting it kind of come very naturally and seeing what comes out rather than having a kind of plan of which I imagine when you're doing it like this would be easier to do if you're not holding yourself to like a theme or like an aim for like which sometimes you can get with an
Yeah,
album, can't you, where you want it to kind of fit
yeah,
together.
exactly.
And so have some of these ones surprised you in any way of like coming out in different ways than you expected though?
Yeah, I mean, not really surprised me as such. I always feel like I've been the sort of songwriter that's, maybe I'm making excuses for the fact that my career isn't more evolved than it is, but I've always felt like I've been someone who's quite hard to like. I don't sit necessarily strictly in one box. Um, so, every review I get is always like there's a comment about genre hopping, and
Mm.
like I'll do, something soul and then country and then folk and rock and pop or whatever. But I just, songs just come out, don't they? They just, they're not like trying to fit into any box. They just emerge. And the songwriters I love all do that as well.
Mm.
That I feel like the true great songwriters, they do, like, they're a bit kind of boundaryless. Um, they just allow songs to come out, and that they're not all like Prince. I don't by any stretch think everything he's done is great, but he is a great songwriter. Richard Thompson, like he's just, he does folk and he does rock and pop and country and like just everything. And I just think his songwriting blows my mind. And
Yeah.
Dylan, of course, and I've so I don't I try not to I don't try and meet any particular aim, but sometimes that's difficult when you're trying to express to people, this is who I am as an
Mm.
artist, get behind me. And I find that's quite hard. Maybe that's not helped me because I'm not Richard Thompson or Bob Dylan or Prince. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I like the way you said it then of like the songs don't know what the genre they are in a way of like it almost feels like like I mean children's kind of a bigger stretch from it, but the idea that You can't say like, oh, I'm going to have a child that likes this. It's like, you know, they have their own personality and songs.
Exactly.
If you're doing it right, if you're letting them materialize themselves, which again, we're kind of getting a bit into the mid. So, and obviously, you can be like, you can't. You know, I'm sure you could sit down and say, right, I'm going to write a country song now, and you could write a country song, and it'd be a
Of
great
course.
country song. But that's a very different process to the way you described. I'm just going to sit down and see what comes out, and letting it
Yeah.
take its own form, and which
Yeah.
feels like that's how you get the more authentic and original stuff, because that's just letting it happen rather than you putting a boundary on it of what you're
Oh,
aiming for.
I really believe that. I really, yeah, like you said, you can, you know, obviously if you want to write a certain song, you can do, of course you can do that. We like of course there are formulas, and of course there are, you know, strategies that we can all use. But when you're allowing something to flow, it's going to be, most of the time, it's not always good, but I feel like it's going to be more authentic, and it's going to be truer, and often it's going to be better, I think.
Yeah. So you said you write a lot.
Mm.
Do you release everything you write, or are there a lot of songs that you write and then you just leave behind? And is there like, what's that process like? You know, when you've written a song, when you've written it, do you know like, oh, I'm going to put this one out, or sometimes you're writing like, oh, I don't know if that one's ready for the public yet, or
Yeah.
that's just for me. You know?
I mean, I'm kind of attached to pretty much all the songs I write, but I do know that some of them aren't very good. Yeah, I mean, when I'm putting together a record, I try and like, I'll think of I'll have a few songs that I kind of really want to put out there, and then I'll try and kind of bring in whatever I've got that works with it. But there are songs that I've got that I've written years ago that still haven't found a home, but I really want them to have a home one day. But they're kind of still sitting there. And there are songs like for this album I'm doing, there's a song that I wrote, and I wrote it in a way, and I really was attached to it, but I never could kind of get it to work properly. And I don't know, it's never gone anywhere, and I've never done anything with it. I think I played it live once maybe. And then but then for this album, I kind of sat down and I thought, I really want that sort of sentiment and these words. And I've played around with it, and I'm playing it differently. So I've kind of changed it. So the song is still there, but it's evolved. And that's, you know, maybe that song's like 4 or 5 years old. But eventually it's found its home. So yeah. And sometimes, you know, if I'm putting together a record and I've got this concept, and then I think, oh, actually, it's made me feel like, oh no, I need to write something. You know, it's kind of inspired something else to happen. So there'll be something that's totally brand new and specifically, you know, because it's happened because of the record. So yeah, it's a bit of a mix.
Yeah, it is. In fact, I love that where songs that, and I'm guessing, are these songs that well, I guess you said then that you're revising some of them, so some songs that like have existed for a while that like in a completed form,
Yeah.
but they still haven't. And it's so interesting the way it links to what we were saying then about, you know, I guess being an artist versus being just like process, I guess. That you could put those songs out on an album. Like I'm sure they're fine songs, but it's, you know, like to you they're not, you know,
No.
there's something not quite right about either where the
No.
song is or where they're going out, and trusting that. Um, but again, it's just so interesting. It's like, why is that? Like, you know, there's nothing, you could put them out, but there's something that, you know, is not there. It's like, and you know, when an artist puts out like a B-sides collection and the songs from 50 years ago, and you're like, why didn't they put that out? That's a great song, but to them there was just something
Exactly.
at the time that didn't fit with it.
Exactly. It's mysterious, isn't it? What
Really mysterious.
resonates, and you've just got instincts with it. So you just got to go with what your instincts are. But you're right. Sometimes what, you know, and often my husband, Kieran, will say to me, you've got to put this song out. And I'm like, absolutely not. That's not. There was a song that I put out just before Christmas, one of my singles called God Only Knows. And I wrote it in lockdown. And it was just like, I was actually going to write a letter to my sister. I've got a twin sister, and I was missing her. I'd been on the phone, and I thought I'm going to write her a letter. And actually, I sat down and wrote this song. I maybe played it to him twice, and anyway forgot about it. And he was like, "Remember that song?" I didn't even remember it. Luckily, I had a voice memo. He was like, "This is a great song. You've got to put it out." And I thought, no. But everybody's reaction has been so nice to this song, and it's got quite a lot of radio play, and so my instinct was totally wrong. That it was just really not worth it. But I don't know. It's weird, isn't it, that it can
really weird.
connect to someone else.
And I guess that's useful as well if you've got somebody like your husband there who like can be that other opinion sometimes, and sometimes push you to be like, I can't think off the top of my head, but there's definitely examples of like really really famous songs where the artist was like, don't really think there's much in this, and someone said no, let's put that one out, and then it's been the biggest hit. It's like that.
It's nuts, isn't it? Yeah, that's happened to me so much with Kieran. We often have such different opinions, and I'm like, this song is really a nothing song. We can forget about it so many times, and and it's ended up being a single or something, and I'm like, oh, okay, I got that wrong.
Yeah, really, really interesting. There's another thing when we were talking about the album, and you said something about. So one of the questions I was going to ask was about when you're starting on an album. Is it often like I've got a few songs here that I could see some connections towards? I'm going to try and I'm going to build towards that, or is it more that you're just keeping this process going of writing when you've got something, and then they fit together themselves. But I guess so that's my kind of first part of the question is that I guess how you start on an album, or do you start off with like an aim for I'd like to do an album that's like tells a certain story or has a certain musical vibe to it? Which I wasn't actually going to ask that question, but I kind of came out as I started talking. But the thing that interested me was when you said about having most of the album and then having a kind of feel of wanting something else for it.
Yeah.
And then writing to fill that, which is a different. So I've heard that kind of concept, I guess, before. People have had an album, then like, oh, I feel like it needs another rock song, or it needs another like, ballad or something. But which to me always feels like that conceptualized way of doing it rather than the expressive way. But then the way you described it made it sound more like it is the expressive way, 'cause it's like a reaction to the album. It's like, oh, this needs this, rather than looking at it in a theoretical way of this the balance.
Yeah.
But, does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does make sense. It does make sense, and I hear you, because one of those things is about like is almost like that thing we were talking about, like writing to a brief. Okay, I want to write a rock song, I want to write a country song, I want to write a whatever, and sitting down and writing it. But I think actually when when like with a record, I've always got so much material that generally there are loads of songs, and I'm trying to kind of bring something together that makes sense, that is a concept, but it's the songs are already out there. But with that, what I was saying was, sometimes just in playing the songs and creating a sound, and it's always the sound that's gonna, definitely with this album, excuse me, there's a real sound, and that's thanks to the musicians 1,000%. Who I'm working with, who bring their own artistry and kind of inspire a whole other level to it. And it takes me to another place. So it's just like, I don't know, it's giving you access to all these other feelings and another place that, I didn't have access to before we started making this record. So then suddenly it's like, okay, I've got this other itch that I need to scratch. And, because I feel like, oh God, I can go here, I can go there. And that would be, that's, I don't know, it's the record itself that's led me to that place, which is a real gift. And the absolute beauty of like collaborating with people that you have a chemistry with. I mean, equally collaborating with people you don't is absolute hell. But when there's a chemistry, it brings its own magic. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm guessing from that you bring the song in its basic structure, and you let the musicians find their own parts.
I mean, that's definitely happened with this album, because I was, you know, I'm always very up and down emotionally. Like I'm always kind of, I, you know, people talk about mental health, don't they? And mine isn't very stable. but you know, Kieran was very much like he's always got a plan and he's always thinking ahead, and I'm not. I'm just surviving my day to day. And he had this kind of obsession about, we need to get in the studio, we need to start making this record, you've got loads of songs. And I really didn't feel ready. And my other albums, I've got my songs in my head that I want to record. I've got things I'm listening to that I know kind of vaguely what sound I want. So I know what vibe I want to create. This record I haven't at all. I've just been like kind of railroaded into the studio with these songs and feeling about as vulnerable as I can feel. And but I mean, I'm really lucky to have musicians around me that I feel totally, you know, safe with, and I trust their musicianship so much. But yeah, just kind of playing through the songs and then gradually them folding in what they were doing. And so for this record, I didn't come in with this is what I want you to listen to, this is what we want to create, this is, you know, I mean, a song will always speak to a degree for itself, but you know, the layers and things that other musicians bring, I mean, takes it, will take a song to a whole other place. And yeah, it's another level, and I think it's I feel really grateful for that. And yeah, this is definitely feels more musician led than this particular record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a good way to do it. Especially when you've got musicians that you trust and you love their playing style and letting them find their place in the song. And yeah. And this is the album's also nominated for an Americana Music Award, isn't it? For Album of the Year.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
No, I'm glad.
Yeah, and you're nominated for Artist of the Year as well, right?
Yeah.
Artist of the Year award.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, congratulations. And that's in January, isn't it?
The awards are in January. I mean, there's some great nominees and a lot of artists that I really admire and I've got listened to actually. So you know, I think it's very unlikely that I'm going to pick up an award, but I'm definitely going to be there and celebrate that I'm up there with with some people that I really respect. And it's a lovely thing. It's obviously a lovely thing.
Yeah, congratulations. It's a
Thank
great
you.
achievement. And you won an Americana award last year for Best Song, didn't you?
Yeah. For a song I wrote called Car Crash, which, I mean, again, like that was a song about, you know, after, you know, I've got a couple of kids, and after I'd had my first son, I mean, many years ago, he's 20 now, but 22. But we were in homeless accommodation, and so I was just going through a terrible, terrible time. And I mean, cut a long story short, I got arrested for shoplifting. And it's a very dark time of my life and like very isolated. Incidentally, a time I was writing prolifically, because it's just that is literally all I had. But I made some stupid decisions. Anyway, it kind of, you know, I don't know. I've spent many years trying to kind of forget that period, and it's not something I really talk about because it's quite shameful. And but anyway, this song came out. I wrote this song, and I wasn't going to put it on an album. And again, Kieran was like, "Yeah, you absolutely have to." And I've ended up putting the song out. I mean, it's a 5-minute song as well, so it wasn't exactly like a single. And it's about being arrested, and you know, the opening line is, "They want to take my baby." So it's just, you know, it's just the most unglamorous sort of subject matter. But but I've ended up kind of singing it, and it's the song that people respond to the most. And I always, after a live show, if I play it, people will always talk to me about it, and they message me about it, and my social media is always full of it. And then I got nominated for this award, and again, it's up against Marcus Mumford, and like, just thought, wow, I can't believe I've been nominated, but there's obviously no way that I'm going to win. In fact, I went to the awards, got really blind drunk before I'd even sat down. And they called my name. I think it took a few minutes, and then I kind of went off stage the wrong way. And I was so shocked. I was so shocked. But yeah, I suppose that's the, I don't know, just the magic of a song that you can bring forward, I don't know, something quite uncomfortable and connect with people, and people don't have to have had that exact same experience, but there's some kind of humanity that does connect with people, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's a really powerful song. And how does that feel for you now then, in terms of like, of it being, like from a difficult time in your life, and but then having that something which I guess is like so public? And do you play it a lot? Is it a regular?
I do play it quite a lot. I do play it quite a lot. Especially like, I've just been doing a support tour with Jules Holland, and so these are new audiences, and I feel like, I just, I've got a short amount of time to kind of tell people about myself, I suppose, and like who I am as a songwriter, and what sort of what my agenda is in writing songs. So which is always about like being human, and so I do play that song. It's always hard to sing on stage. Like I always feel like I'm battling tears, or like I'm on the edge, and I could kind of break down at any moment. So there's always certain songs are like that for me, and I'll just performing it is a battle between my emotions and the actual performance. But the act of doing it and writing it and perform, I feel like has made that part of my life less painful. And I think there is a thing about like things that you harbor inside, feelings or experiences that you don't share, they kind of grow and fester. There's a massive burden that you live with, and writing a song, and I think even for your listeners, anyone who's got stuff going on, and even if they don't want to, I mean, I was quite explicit in that song, but even if you're not explicit, even if you're writing in metaphors, but giving voice to some burden that you're living with, helps release that. And it's that, I think that's where the therapy is. Maybe it just helps you to let it go.
Yeah. Does it feel like you like, is he letting you take ownership of it in a way of like you making it into something which then is like you've got control over in some kind of way?
I totally, because you have I mean, obviously the words have come out in the song, but then in introducing the song, or in like connecting with someone afterwards who wants to tell you their experience, it's like a real gift of an opportunity to revisit that time, and frame it in a way that you have some power over, and giving yourself a bit of forgiveness, because we all beat ourselves up, obviously, and but just it's helped me find some empathy for myself, and just be a bit kinder towards myself. And I suppose that's because it's allowed me to come out of it a little bit, rather than sitting in the, oh, what a shameful, disgusting experience, and I was arrested, and I had my son, and I just it was just those are horrible feelings, and you feel like you've failed on every level. But coming out of it and talking about it gives you some control over the framework of it, and helps you revisit it in a different way.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Hannah. Yeah, it's a really powerful song, and glad that you got such good recognition for it, and best of luck for the awards in January. I'm keeping an eye on how they go.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So let's move into section 2 now, shall we? This is where I ask my guests for a songwriting tip. So what would your songwriting tip be for us today, Hannah?
My songwriting tip is to we kind of touched on it a bit earlier, but I absolutely think to allow a flow. So just to not force anything. So, you know, play around and be playful, give yourself permission. And if something is feeling forced, let it go. I will always, you know, I often start a song and think, oh yeah, I'm really pleased with this. And then it kind of stops and I'm trying to, you know, write the middle eight or write the chorus or finish the verse or whatever. And it's just not, it's not working. I'll just put it away and then revisit it until there's a flow, because I do actually believe songwriting should be quite easy. And you know, it's taken me so many years. I'm not a young songwriter, but it's taken me so many years to kind of come to terms with that. And there was, you know, in my past, I've labored over songs and tried to write it in this way, try to achieve that, or make this sound, or make it sound whatever. And I listen back to some of my songs and cringe and think, oh God, should not have done that. And it's yeah, the most yeah, I feel like the best songs are the most natural ones. So just let it flow. If it's not flowing, it doesn't have to all come out at once. Put it away, come back to it when it does, and it will happen.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Do you have any like routine with your writing, or is it, you know, when you're inspired, do you go and write, or do you like have a set time or anything like that? I guess obviously now if you're doing a song a month, you must have some kind of.
I mean, it's not really a routine, but I have got I mean, I don't really have a very quiet mind, so there's always like it's yeah, I'm never really settled, but in some ways that's good for songwriting, because I'm always like alert to things, like if there's words or an experience or a picture or something someone says, or if I'm listening to a song and there's a chord progression or something that's just kind of touched me, I'm always kind of storing bits and pieces. So that's, yeah, I mean, sometimes that's really bad because I just get tired and I just sometimes I can't sleep because I've got stuff going over in my head and I just think, oh, I don't care, just go away. But yeah, sometimes that's quite a good thing. But the songs come out when if I'm driving, or you know, you're just stopped, or if I'm in the shower, or you know, I feel like you need a bit of a settled situation. And if I'm in a painful place or something, I feel like I'm getting this urge, I will just take myself away. But I don't really have a routine of it as such. It's just kind of part of the way I live, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I guess, your lifestyle works around, you know, being able to do that when knowing when you can follow that instinct when something's coming.
And I kind of feel like it's really important. For me, it's always been a really important thing. So, I mean, way before, I mean, I didn't come to performing till quite later on in life, because it's just, well, my life was chaotic and I just didn't have any confidence but it's always been something I've done, and I've always found it important. And I've always, when I was alone, like single mom or whatever, it would just be like, okay, baby to bed, I'm going to spend the evening writing. And you know, most of it was rubbish, but that's fine, because that's just it's important. So it's still important. It's still a part of my life, that, you know, when you're planning, you know, you've got to shop, you've got to whatever, you've got to do your work, you've got to, if you're exercising, I don't know, whatever it is in my day that I want to do, songwriting will be there, because it's just important to me.
And that and so when you say that, you sometimes it's sitting with your guitar and doing that, and sometimes it's like songwriting in your head when you're driving or in the shower, and so it's like you can kind of do it anywhere, I guess. Can you have?
Oh yeah, and it's really private, and obviously we've all got our phones now, so you can quickly voice memo something, even if you're kind of walking up to someone's house and you get an idea, quickly voice memo it, put it away, and then you know it's safe. So that's really cool. But yeah, it's just a really private thing. And if you write something, you know, really personal, you don't want to share it with anyone, you don't have to. It can just be for you, and that's amazing. Or you can just keep it there with the intention to turn it into something else, to make it more palatable for other people, whatever. You can go anywhere with it.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I love the we always say it's Spirit Swan Song all the time. Like we can write something, and if you don't want anyone else to hear it, no one else has to hear it. Like doing it itself, we could write a song, and then we could just like never play it, listen to it again. But if we enjoyed the writing and got something out of the writing of it, then that's worthwhile, isn't it? It's you don't have.
Absolutely.
It's so hard of like I just some people have a view of music that it's all based around how many listeners it gets and how many people it gets. Whereas like writing one song, even if you write a song for yourself, you so you might just write it, enjoy writing it, forget about it. That's still a worthwhile process, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And like I was thinking the other day, because I sometimes I find touring a lot, like on my mental health and just, performing, blah, blah, blah. And I was just trying to work out, where do I get my biggest joy? Where's my biggest like moment of peace or creative kick or just the joy of it? And I was thinking about it, and it's actually in the songwriting. It's
Yeah.
actually that moment you've written a song and it's come out, and there's a feeling that is just, you can't, and if nobody hears it, and if you never play it again, even, it's just something's happened and it's so joyful. I don't know why.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. For me, it was always like that. Particularly if you get like a really nice lyric or something where it's like it's a really kind of complex emotion or something you're trying to get in, and then you just find like a little couplet with a little tune, and you're like, that sums up all this stuff that I've been trying to figure out. It's just
I mean,
boom, there's like
isn't
a
that
little line here,
magic?
and it just feels like smashed it.
Yeah, when you've got the right words, somehow. So I was playing around with my daughter the other day, like just taking some words of famous songs, and I was singing like "I Can't Get No Satisfaction" to a different melody, and it sounded so naff. And I was like, "There's something about the right words with the right melody, and when you get that marriage, it's pow! It's
Yeah.
just like, wow, it's such a good feeling."
Yeah, it's that thing, isn't it, where it's like you've probably heard this metaphor before. People who say that like it's like the songs are out there and you're just trying to catch them. And it's
Yes,
like when you get something where it does just feel like that just feels perfect. That feels like that's exactly the right. It scans perfectly. It sings really well. The
yeah,
rhymes are right. It says exactly what it wants to say. It feels great to sing it, and you
yeah.
just feel like, oh, how lucky I've got that.
Absolutely, it is lucky, and
Yeah,
maybe that is true. Maybe they are just out there, and we are just catching them, and that's because they are their own thing, aren't they? They're not.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's. I think it was. I heard Dylan say at some point when somebody asked him, about how he felt about having written like all these iconic songs, and he was just like, oh, well, if I hadn't written them, somebody else would have done. And it's like. But I kind of like I love his kind of modesty of it in some respect. But like the idea that somebody would have written like a Rolling Stone, so like somebody had to write that song at some
yeah.
point, or somebody would have written "Blowing in the Wind" because it's just like
I
too
mean
perfect of a thing.
that is, maybe that is true, and I think like we went to see Dylan a couple of times in this tour, in his last tour, and he was. I mean, he's amazing. He's like 82 or 84, whatever he is. And he had these, like, we saw him in a stadium in Liverpool, and then we saw him at the Albert Hall. And he's bought his own like vintage stage lights, and they're kind of like warm glow. Wasn't using any of the stadium lights. You could barely see him basically. And he's standing at the back of the stage, so you just like this shadow. You didn't really talk to the audience. And he's singing these incredible songs in ways that are just not recognizable at all. Just absolutely pleasing himself. So there's a mixed reaction around us, like some, people who know, and people who don't are just like, what the hell is this? And some people walked out. But I just thought, this is a man who has always been totally like uncorrupted by the fame or the audience, or that he's just channeling. Like, he's just like, if we'd have been sitting in his living room, I mean, some of it he was clonking away at the piano and he's a bit out of time, but he's just having a great time and doing what pleases him. And sometimes that's phenomenally, masterfully great, and sometimes it's not that good, but he's always true. And he's
Mm.
been maybe he's just been able to have like catch and write these great songs because he's so true to that, and he's not trying to, like when he went electric and everyone, the bad press and the booze and that, but he still did it, and he's always pleased himself. And that's why I think about like letting it flow. And I don't know, I was really inspired by seeing him, just thinking the honesty and the courage to not look at that audience and go, okay, I'm going to hire the best session musicians, we're going to do blowing in the wind, you know, the way everyone knows, everyone will sing it and everyone will be happy. He's not doing that because he doesn't want to. So I just think, wow, I just admire that so much.
Yeah, and I can see how, like, so I've never seen Dylan. You know, I would love to, but I kind of feel a bit conflicted. Like, in some ways, I would love to go and see Dylan and hear him do, you know, a run of the greatest hits. But then I absolutely, you can't not respect. I get that some people go and be like, oh, what's going on? I wanted to hear these, but
Yeah.
you kind of have to respect that, you know. He's Bob Dylan. He's like one of the truest artists there is, and he's going to Bob Dylan up there. He's going to do his thing and do what he wants to do. And
Absolutely.
he's not bothered if what you want to hear.
He really isn't bothered. He's not there for you. He's not performing. He's playing.
Yeah.
And go to a gig and some of it will be incredible and some of it will be like, what? But it's all both times me and Kieran both came away on a total high. Like, that was amazing. Yeah, totally special.
Amazing. I do want to move on because I'm conscious of time. But one thing I just wanted to quickly ask you, when you're talking about when you first started talking about songwriting, about this tip, and you said that you think songwriting should be easy, which I really like. But what I want to ask you is, should it be fun? I guess, is that the thing? Do you always find it fun? Because I was thinking about, talking about Car Crash and some of the songs that have a lot of emotional weight. Is fun and easy the same thing, or is it like not necessarily fun, but the process feels natural, I guess? That makes sense.
Yeah. Should it be fun? Like,
or does it feel fun for you all the time?
No, it doesn't feel fun. But there is something always, maybe joyful is not the right word either, I don't know, but there is something quite deeply I don't know, satisfying, or no, I think there's more than satisfying about it. I wouldn't say it's fun. Sometimes it's agony. And it's and I, you know, sometimes you can be sitting crying, or sometimes it's not working and that's frustrating, but there is always a deep joy stroke satisfaction, I think. So it definitely always gives you a good feeling, I think.
Yeah. Does it feel meaningful? Would that be a good word to describe? I think I know what you mean, but I just wanted to try and get. And it does feel like it's one of those things, but like some of the other stuff we talked about earlier, where it's like it's hard to put it into words, but you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
But is it a bit like the kind of, when people talk about flow, where it's like you kind of in that zone? It's not necessarily. It's hard to describe, but it feels like you need to do it.
It does, yeah, and it definitely does feel meaningful. Although I've often thought, why the hell am I, why? I don't know, because but if somebody asked me what I'm alive for, and it sounds totally ridiculous, but I feel like it is for songs. I don't know why. I don't know why it has that level of meaning. I think it is the ultimate human expression. It's the ultimate, not like the only. There are other artistic expressions, but it's the only one I can do. And I think that's what makes it so meaningful. Like, we're on the planet, I think, to just be together, to connect, and there's the meaning, isn't it? Like, when you're with someone and you're sharing something, and it doesn't have to be there in the room in person. Like, when Prince died, I was in absolute bits, and my kids were like, why are you crying? You didn't know him. And I was like, no, he didn't know me. I knew him because I've been listening to his music and just been, so we didn't have to be in the same room, but there was definitely, for me, a deep connection. And so maybe that's what makes it so meaningful, maybe.
Hi, I am Jill Hurst, and as a family we have worked with the Swan Song Project to write a song about my husband Paul, who was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's 3 years ago at the age of 59. As music has always been a love of Paul's, and each day continues to bring him joy, writing a song seemed a great way to celebrate what he means to us. We wanted to get over the beautiful, kind man he is and our memories of our happy times together. This song is perfect, a powerful, poignant and upbeat tribute. Writing our song has been a fascinating and fun experience we will never forget, bringing us closer together as a family and giving us the opportunity to share our happy and sad emotions of this difficult journey. Please donate to the Swan Song Project to help more people write a swan song.
With you it's always a lovely day.
Let's move into section 3 now, shall we? This is where I ask my guests for a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. So which song have you chosen for us for this section, Hannah?
I chose a song that I wrote called My Father. It kind of took me quite a lot to choose this song, but my dad was a really massively important person in my life. Obviously, he's my parent, but he was unusual, and he'd spent 15 years of his life in prison. He was always like wrong side of the law, like scallywag, total, and he had all the negative things as well. He could be violent, and he's drink and drugs, and he was racist, and there's a lot of negative about him, but he was also, he had a lot of trauma in his life, and he was larger than life, and he loved poetry and he loved literature, and even though he couldn't really spell properly, didn't finish school, he would, like in prison, he'd read like so much, and he would tackle like the densest, like Tolstoy, and just he had us reciting Wordsworth. So we were brought up on a council estate, and like he would just have us reciting poetry, and he wanted us to know the great thinkers, and he would listen to classical music, and it wasn't like a box ticking exercise. It was something that really moved him. He loved gardening, and he plumbed these speakers out in the garden, and he like first thing in the morning he'd have red wine on the go, and he'd have like Maria Callas, and he'd be welling up with emotion, listen to this. So he's so larger than life, and he was so exciting to be around, and he loved nature, and so he's just this big person, and he always had a plan. He's like, right, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to, like, I don't know, or he's going to farm butterflies, or then he's going to like just build a house somewhere, or then he's going to just, I don't know, he had some scam on the go, and he's just always out and about doing stuff, and he's just very exciting person to be around. Also a nightmare, but exciting. And then and he died quite suddenly. He was never ill, never sick. He was always just on the go, larger than life. And then suddenly he got diagnosed with cancer. And it was just kind of happened at a time before I really had a chance to kind of think about the fact that your parents die. And that's, it just kind of seemed to come out of nowhere. I remember the phone call, and it felt like a punch in the stomach, and it kind of winded me. And he had cancer of the esophagus, and it took 2 years, and it was a very painful, cruel, slow 2 years. And I've written so many songs about that process, and about losing him, and I wasn't brought up with any religion or anything. I felt like I didn't have anywhere to go, and he was not frightened of anything in life. The only thing I knew he was frightened of was death, because he didn't believe in anything. So he didn't handle it that well. He went very quiet, and I was so young, and I didn't leave his side, but I didn't know what to say. So a lot of time we just sat in silence, and I didn't know how to make it better. So it was very sad and difficult, and it just took me, this happened so many decades ago, and it took me so many years to be able to, live with the pain. Well, obviously I have lived with the pain, but yeah, it was totally overwhelming. And the song My Father is, yeah, I suppose, about my sadness for him as a person, rather than like the grief that I felt, I guess. But it was a song I just a song I wanted to write to bring him. Well, I wanted to write. I brought to bring him into song. I suppose that's what I was. Yeah, I suppose that's what it was. And I got a bad review for this song. And it stopped me because it's so close to home and such a heartfelt thing to read this awful review. It kind of stopped me singing it for years, and it wasn't until I was touring in Norway a few months ago and someone requested it, and I was like, oh, I can't sing that song, and they said, oh, please, and so I kind of bumbled my way through it because it's been quite a few years, and I thought, no, I've got to go back to it. I've got to start singing it again. So that's why I kind of brought it here.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing it, Hannah. It is a beautiful and really powerful song. So yeah, for the listeners, we'll have a listen to it now. So this is My Father.
My father always yearned for more. My father always broke the law, was sent away frequently, where he wrote prose and poetry. My father never finished school. Some people took him for a fool, but he built a house and made things grow. There was no book he didn't know.
Okay, so that was My Father. Yeah, so it's a really beautiful song. And I really liked what you said then about like, yeah, it's about him rather than about losing him and about the grief. It's about kind of like remembering who he was and the good and the bad.
Yeah,
That's what again it feels like it's got that real it feels very authentic in the fact that it's not sometimes, especially when someone's died, there's a tendency to just talk about the best things, isn't there? And whereas this feels very honest of like, these are some of his flaws, but these are some of the beautiful things about him, and it so then and that's what people are, isn't it? So it feels very
yeah,
real.
yeah. And that's, I mean, I suppose that's again, I suppose poetry or mute or songs like that can bring all these contradictions together and help them make sense without you having to explain it. It just kind of sits there, doesn't it? So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, and it feels a bit like that as well, where it's not, it's like there's not a is there a chorus in it? There's a chorus in there.
There is,
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose a refrain. Yeah, yeah,
But it's like it doesn't feel like it's like here's the message. It feels like it's like
yeah,
here's a picture of a man,
yeah,
and what he meant to me and the kind of impact in a way. But it doesn't feel like just here's the nugget and then here's the
yeah,
surroundings. So it feels like here's a big picture of a person.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. It is, yeah. I often try and make songs, and that is kind of a little bit deliberate. I try not to be like preach, like songs that tell you you should do this or it's wrong to do, or there's something in that like makes me tense up a little bit inside. So I do try to kind of make a picture without saying anything explicitly, this is good, this is bad, or you should, or I should, or you like, yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just about, this is a picture.
And that the audience can make their own mind up about
Yeah,
any meaning they take from
totally.
that. Yeah. Um. So, how long did it take for you to write the song? You said you wrote a lot of songs about that experience.
Mm.
When did this one come around? Was it a long time afterwards, or
Yeah, a long
yeah,
time afterwards, I suppose. Something like death or birth or big events stay with you, and but there is a process, like you move through them and you're in a different place. So I wrote a lot about like just grief, sadness, pain, loss, regret, whatever. And then I suppose this came, so this, maybe this is like 15 years after his death. Just and it is I suppose sad. It's like sad for the there's so much about the things that were against him, being someone who had difficulties in life and was trying to get on his feet, but actually there are systems in place and sometimes that's not possible, and just kind of trying to quietly advocate for the fact that people sometimes do bad things and behave badly, but it's not as simple as they're just making bad choices, or that sometimes it's too difficult. The alternative isn't accessible. So yeah, I suppose it's kind of processing all of that, and what his life was, what it meant, and yeah, and how it ended, I guess. Yeah.
yeah? Did it feel like are there any of the other ones that you wrote from that period that you either still play or still kind of, oh, was this the one that like felt like what you were aiming for with those other ones in a way?
um I mean, I don't I do I play them? No, I guess I don't really too much. And I think, I'm not sure why. I think I do tend to play what I'm writing. Like I find it very difficult to service an album even because those songs have kind of been and done, and I've written them, recorded them, whatever, and I just want to move on to what's in my heart, which is what I'm kind of working on or writing. And so I don't tend, unless somebody asks for it, or yeah, I mean, every now and again I'll go back, but generally I don't tend to so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad that somebody brought this one back to you anyway. And that must be so nice at a gig and it's something we get quite a lot in this section of the podcast, particularly where people have songs that are like, and I guess it happens a lot with grief songs where audience members really react to them, and even though I'm sure that a lot of the audience members it's very different descriptions of people that in your song to theirs, but they connect to that having a song about a person, and particularly one like this where it is it's all these different parts of what makes up a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's really nice to be able to honor someone and talk about them, or even if you're not talking about them, they're there in your mind. So you're honoring them quietly, and they're kind of in the room with you, and that's really, really lovely. I mean, on my new album, I've written a song about, it will be coming out, and it's a song about him, and how much I miss him. So it's much more, I suppose, universal in that way, but it's a comfort to me that then he's there, and he'll be there with the album, and when I'm playing it, and when I'm and people are talking about the song, for me they'll be talking about him. So that's a really nice thing.
Yeah,
helps them kind of live on, helps that person live on. Yeah
Definitely. This is potentially like kind of mystical sounding thing. We've had a few of them, so I don't mind saying this one now. But something that I think about a lot with Swan songs, where I always think there's something about, like, that a song has a life of its own in a way, and like, so every time you sing this song, you might sing it slightly different than you sang it before. Your voice changes over time. There's all these things where the song's every time you're doing it, it's got and obviously you're singing it, you're breathing life into it, so it feels like it's kind of. So I always think of that particularly with songs about people who aren't here anymore, songs written by people who aren't here anymore. It does feel like a way of keeping them alive with you and carrying them with you as you go through life as well.
I absolutely think that. And maybe, that's someone said to me once, he said to me, it's a fellow songwriter and producer, and I was just kind of out and about, and we started talking, having a drink, and he said, he said something like, what's your muse, or something like what? And I kind of didn't know what he's talking about. And then I said, there's an author that I read, and there's a Black American author called Toni Morrison. I don't know if you know it, but she writes a lot of books about, sort of slave period, and it's fictional, but based on, reality of what people went through, but they're fictional stories. They're very, very traumatic books to read. I always find them difficult, but I will read them for the sake of her sentences, because she will always. I've written so many songs from a word or a picture or something that she's kind of, that I've read, that I've thought that's really, and it's not necessarily key to the story or whatever, but she's got a way with words. Anyway, so I was telling him, and I was like, Toni Morrison, blah 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 blah, and he was like, he said, is she alive? And I said, no, she's dead. And he went, that's amazing. That is you're connecting with that person, and her essence is creating these songs. And I was like, oh God, yeah, okay. And he said, who knows when you're gone, like what your songs are going to do and how they're going to breathe life into someone else or channel through. There's a journey. You're going to journey through all these people, and you don't know who, how, or where. But that's the brilliant thing about making a song, or making any art, but making a song or a book, is that that's it. It's got a life way beyond you. And so, if you're, maybe that's a way of, like, we're journeying someone who's gone, but not gone, and they're going to travel through all these people and places, and we don't really know how, but that's something that will happen.
Yeah, definitely. And it's potentially life-changing as well, isn't it? Like, that example there of, it's so like inspirational for your work, but sometimes, somebody might hear my father to the side of the world who's in the same situation you were, is really struggling with their grief, and it might just turn things around for them. And it can be, art can be that powerful, can't it? There's things that
really can.
And what feels weird is that, like you might never know that there might be somebody that might have happened to loads of people, and you might never know that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Power of music.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been brilliant, Hannah. I've really enjoyed our chat. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's really great to hear about Swan Song Project. And, you know, I really wish you all the best, because I think it's a really powerful, amazing project. I'm very sure you'll be making a massive difference to a lot of people.
Oh, thank you very much, Hannah. Thank you. Appreciate the support. And yeah, best of luck for the AMA Awards in January. I'll keep an eye on them. And
Thank you.
yeah, and I'll put all the links to your social media and website and everything in the description, so anyone listening wants to go and follow Hannah, you can do. But yeah, thank you very much. That's been great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'll be back with another episode soon.